Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
We're here to take this stack of sources you've given us and basically pull out the most interesting bits, give you a quick way to get up to speed on what's happening this week.
Yeah, without feeling totally overwhelmed by it all.
Exactly. And we've got quite a mix here. You put together film, gaming, music, other cultural stuff.
Mm. The plan is just to dive into this material, see what's coming up that feels, important or maybe surprising.
Definitely looks like a varied week. We've got, let's see, the next John Wick thing, that new Nintendo console everyone's waiting for, a TikTok star's album.
Right, and some TV, books, theater too, all straight from the sources you sent over.
Okay, so let's jump in. Big screen first.
Yeah.
The sources are pointing to a pretty significant film release this Friday. Ballerina.
Correct, yeah, that's the one. Latest installment, technically, in the John Wick franchise. Hits cinemas this week.
But it's not John Wick 5, is it? The material says it's a spin-off.
That's right, a spin-off. And it's set, interestingly, during the events of John Wick. Chapter 3, Parabellum.
Okay. And it follows a new character, Eve Macaro,
Yeah.
played by Ana de Armas.
Yep. The sources describe her as a ballerina who becomes an assassin.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting. Based on those director's notes from Len Wiseman and your sources, he called it kind of the opposite of John Wick's story.
That contrast is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
He basically says Wick is always trying to get out of the assassin life, but Eve, this new character, she's wanting in. She wants to be a killer.
Wants in. That feels,
Yeah,
counterintuitive for that whole world. Wick's desperate to escape.
it does.
So what does that tell us based on the sources, this idea of wanting in versus wanting out?
Well, it suggests the universe is getting bigger than just, the consequences of trying to leave.
Right.
Exploring someone who actively chooses that path, who seeks it out. That could give us a totally different angle on what pulls people into that whole high table world.
Like the allure, not just the cost.
Yeah, exactly. Adds another layer to the whole mythology, maybe.
And speaking of mythology, the big question from the sources is Keanu in it? Is John Wick actually in Ballerina?
Yes, he is. Although the Hollywood Reporter piece noted Keanu himself mentioned spending only about 8 days on set.
Just 8 days. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but he sounded pretty upbeat about it in that quote included in the material.
Let me see. Oh, yeah. But it was fun to play the role again, and I'm excited for people to see the film.
He goes on, it's in the spirit of John Wick and has new characters and opens up some stuff, so hopefully people like it.
So that quote, plus the director talking about the opposite story, it really feels like they're trying to, evolve the franchise.
Definitely. Using that core spirit of John Wick, but deliberately going for new perspectives, new characters.
The strategic expansion, focusing on someone entering the world instead of leaving it.
Interesting. Absolutely. Okay, so from the big screen to maybe an even bigger screen for some people. The gaming world. Thursday is launch day for the Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh yeah, huge day. Gamers have definitely had this circled on the calendar.
For sure. The sources mention the anticipation is just sky high. We're talking maybe hundreds of thousands, potentially even 1 million people unboxing one this week.
And the original Switch, just for context, is like the 3rd best-selling console ever, right?
That's what the material says. So yeah, massive shoes to fill for this sequel.
And the first impressions. Someone got early access in your sources.
Yeah, they described it as feeling familiar, like the Switch,
Okay.
but with a bigger and brighter screen and, crucially, much more power under the hood.
More power. Okay, expected. But this controller detail you flagged in the sources sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that caught my eye, too. It can be used like a computer mouse by twisting it on its side.
Right, which apparently makes playing PC games, they mentioned Civilization 7th, more enjoyable than using joysticks.
That's more than just a gimmick, potentially. It kind of raises questions about Nintendo maybe blurring the lines a bit.
Between console and PC gaming.
Yeah, maybe trying to grab people who want that portable PC feel, but prefer the Switch form factor over, say, a Steam Deck or a gaming laptop.
Yeah.
Feels like a strategic move to broaden the appeal.
But that extra power, that innovation, doesn't come cheap, does it? The sources point out a pretty big downside.
Cost. The hardware itself is more expensive than maybe fans are used to from Nintendo.
And the games too, right?
Yes, that's a key point. The example given was a physical copy of Mario Kart World costing, get this, a whopping £74.99.
Wow, 75 quid for Mario Kart. That, combined with a pricier console, definitely ups the barrier to entry. Nintendo's usually quite accessible.
It is. So what does that pricing signal? Are they shifting their target audience or just betting big that the power jump and features justify it?
Well, Based just on the sources we have, emphasizing the power and that unique controller, it suggests they're betting the performance and those new capabilities will justify the premium, both to their existing fans and maybe pulling in new people interested in that portable PC-like stuff.
And the fact that pre-orders are selling out worldwide, as noted in the material.
Right, that suggests the market might just be willing to pay up.
It certainly looks like Nintendo might be onto another winner, despite the cost. It's a big moment for portable gaming, maybe even game pricing in general.
And also happening in gaming, Summer Game Fest kicks off Friday, right? 3 days of reveals.
Yep, that's in there too. Busy week for gamers.
Okay, shifting gears now. Music and culture. The sources highlight a really interesting debut this week. Talks about changing paths to fame. Addison Rae's album.
Yes, her debut studio album, it's just called Addison, out on Friday.
And the material gives context. She's known as a TikTok creator with nearly 90 million followers, also a Netflix movie star, and now singer.
Quite the trajectory, from social media fame to, well, traditional entertainment lanes.
The sources mention her inspirations are Charli XCX and Madonna.
And the album was overseen by Max Martin's publishing company, which is, a big deal in pop music.
Definitely. And it says she co-wrote every song. Sessions in LA, New York, Sweden.
Yeah, she seems very involved, and she's had some success already with singles. Your sources flagged 5 songs released before the album.
Right, with Diet Pepsi being the biggest success story last year. UK top 10 hit.
Yep. And the description from that Rolling Stone writer, Brittany Spanos, gives a sense of the sound. Hypnotic, trance-like pop songs, pulsating and lush.
With lyrics aiming to make you feel young, fun, and free. Sounds very pop.
It does. But her background, coming from TikTok, plus the Max Martin connection, her co-writing, it really highlights how the music industry landscape is shifting.
How so?
Well, it suggests labels are looking at that massive online reach, that built-in audience and personality, almost as much as or alongside traditional ways of finding talent.
So digital platforms are directly influencing, maybe even disrupting, how stars are made now.
Seems like it. It raises questions about authenticity and how the established industry is adapting to these new kinds of artists.
Interesting point. And other music news this week from the sources.
Yeah, a couple of other things. Pulp, they're releasing a new album, More, also on Friday. Shows the established acts are still going strong.
Right.
And the first ever SXSW London Music Festival starts on Monday.
Okay, so that covers the big film, gaming, and music beats from your sources. But there was also a quick look at other screens and pages.
Right, just a quick roundup of other bits and pieces happening. TV-wise, there's episode 2 of Jane Austen, Rise of a Genius on Monday.
Okay.
A documentary, Lockerbie. Our Story hits iPlayer Monday and BBC Channels Tuesday, and the drama The Gold drops Sunday on iPlayer and BBC One.
Got it. And for readers?
A book release, The First Gentleman. It's that collaboration between Bill Clinton and James Patterson, out Monday.
Another one of those.
Okay.
And theater. Something for Potter fans.
Yeah, kind of fun. Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy, is reprising his role, but on stage this time.
Oh, interesting.
The source notes he's the first star of the original movie series to appear in the spin-off stage show.
Huh. That's actually a great example of how these things cross over now. Film actors moving to the stage adaptations.
It's exactly.
So looking back at everything from the sources for this week, we've got the Wick spin-off, exploring new angles, the Switch 2 blurring lines between console and PC but with higher prices, a TikTok star's major label album, plus all this TV, book, theater stuff. What's the thread here? What does it all tell us about culture right now?
Well, if you connect the dots just from this material you shared, it really shows a landscape where the boundaries feel increasingly fluid.
Fluid? How?
You've got film franchises expanding their universes, exploring different themes and characters like Ballerina. You have gaming hardware like the Switch 2 incorporating features that kind of cross-platform divides.
Right, the mouse thing.
Yeah. Then social media influence directly translates into traditional careers, like Addison Rae's music launch. And beloved characters are jumping mediums, like Draco going from screen to stage.
It does feel like all these different forms of entertainment are sort of converging and influencing each other more and more.
Definitely. And our goal here, just using the sources you gave us, was to flag those interesting connections and facts quickly so you get a handle on it all.
Exactly. So what stood out most to you from all that we've just unpacked from these sources? And maybe the provocative thought to leave you with, based on this mix. Given how these sources show film expanding, gaming blurring lines, social media stars launching albums, characters moving to stage, how much longer will these traditional boxes film, gaming, music even make sense as totally separate things?
That's a good question.
How are you seeing those lines disappear in the way you consume culture day to day?
Definitely something to chew on. It feels like things are changing fast.
Absolutely.
Well, that's our deep dive for this week, based purely on the material you provided. Thanks for sharing those sources. Always interesting to see what bubbles up.
Yeah, I hope you feel a bit more informed about what's going on across the cultural landscape this week.
Until the next one.